Hello cookies, it's Siri. I am back today with an update. As you all know from my previous video about my sterilization process, I hadn't made a decision yet about whether to go through with the surgery or not. And now the universe gave me a wink, or more like a push. One of my close friends accidentally got pregnant and I went with her to the clinic. What I thought would be a straightforward endeavor turned out to be a bigger hassle. In Europe, Sweden is the easiest place to terminate a pregnancy through talking to multiple people, classmates, colleagues, even dates whose girlfriends had accidental pregnancies before. Getting a termination done here in Sweden is fairly easy, and it is actually quite cheap as well. When I was studying Swedish for immigrants, I had a friend of mine that also terminated a pregnancy, and she told me that it was easy peasy lemon squeezy. She went there, they gave her a pill, she took the pill and it was all done. She brushed it off as something quite casual, and throughout the years living in Sweden I realized that people here, when they get to know you, are quite open about having pregnancies terminated before or knowing people who have done it before, and it's not such a huge deal as in other places in the world. So because of all that, I always assumed that it was a really easy thing to get done, and it was quick, rather painless, and it was a routine procedure. I myself have never gotten pregnant, which I'm really grateful for, but I can also say that I'm really careful with protection, so I have never slipped on anything accidentally. You know how people say, oh, I accidentally cheated, and it's like, so you basically slipped and accidentally fell on someone's private parts? That has not happened to me before, and I'm really careful with protection and really trying to avoid diseases and pregnancies, so I've never had either of those. So when my friend messaged me about being pregnant and I went with her to the clinic, that's when I first realized that it was not as easy and straightforward as I thought it would be. First of all, she had to book an appointment. Granted, she got an appointment the day after she took her test, but then when we went there, she had to do a full exam. I wasn't there with her, but I was there with her until the exam, and a lot of questions were asked. The nurse was extremely rude to me. She treated me like I was an undesirable person to be there, even though my friend asked me to be there and I wanted to be a supportive friend, but the nurse really treated me so bad. I was not happy about it, but I didn't say anything because this was not about me, it was about my friend. The memories of the entire ordeal are quite blurry in my head because even though it's something that happened to my friend, the whole topic of pregnancy and termination and all of that for me is quite uncomfortable. Can a topic be uncomfortable? I don't know if a topic can be uncomfortable, but the whole ordeal made me feel really uncomfortable. I remember that she had to go twice to the clinic. So the first time she had to go there and take the pill, and she had to take it under supervision of someone. And then the second time it was for a checkup or something like that. I do remember though that the whole thing cost her 100 crowns. That's what she told me, including the pills, because I asked twice. I did not expect it to be so cheap. So that was a good surprise. I thought it would cost a bit more than that, like 200 crowns or 300 crowns. Keep in mind that a couple of days ago, 100 crowns was exactly 10 euros, so it's not really that expensive. Onto the pill itself, I obviously understood that it would create some physical changes and do something because it's supposed to be pills that you take for a termination, but what happened to my friend was bad. It was pretty bad. She suffered and she told me that it was hell. She literally said, Eerie, never get pregnant, it's hell. And I asked her which part, the being pregnant part or the termination part, and she said both. It's really hell. She said she lost sensation in her legs, she was feeling extremely weak, nauseous, pain, there's bleeding, and I freaked out, and I'm still freaking out about it. I generally feel like I had no information about the consequences of taking that pill, because everyone that I have met has always made it sound like it is not a big deal. So basically everyone sold it to me that it was just a quick fix, not a big deal. And my friend is the first person to be entirely honest about it and say, no, don't believe people. Everyone told me the same thing too, and I'm telling you it's hell. So the whole thing really freaked me out. Why are people saying it's not a big deal? Why are people lying about it or trivializing the whole thing? It is a big deal. I mean, even emotionally, the whole thing, emotionally, physically, it's not a big deal type of situation. So I'm really glad that my friend told me the truth, because I think it's necessary to talk about those things and communicate and share information instead of just saying it's not a big deal and then people have the wrong expectations of what to expect. Eerie from the future here, watching back this footage. So I showered this morning. This is newly washed, and I put on deodorant, and I have no idea what is happening, but this is happening. And I thought, am I going to refilm this whole thing? Which I don't want to do because my videos are always spontaneous. I might have bullet points on a notebook next to me just so I don't forget all the topics, but I don't have a script. This is a one-take conversation. Most of my videos I put a copious amount of deodorant, so this would not happen because this is a new silk shirt that I did not want this to happen on, and I don't want to refilm this, so you'll have to deal with it. At least I smell really good. I showered, I'm fresh, I have deo on, and even the doggo is newly showered. The bed sheets are freshly not showered but washed and steamed and everything. This will be happening for the rest of the video. What happened to my friend triggered a snowball effect of different thoughts that turned into a huge snowball that said, you have to get it done. One important thing that I considered as well is that when I had my laparoscopic surgery, I was 23, 24, something like that. And now I am 29. It was already quite hard for me to heal back then, and the older I get, the longer I wait, the harder it's going to be for me to heal from a surgery, because, I mean, it is science. A 20-year-old is not going to heal the same way as someone who's 55. So me waiting to be in my 30s or 40s to get it done might occasion more complications and a harder time for me post-surgery than me doing it now while I'm still in my 20s. Another thing as well is that during these uncertain times, hospitals and clinics have different waiting times. Last year, when I randomly checked the termination clinics, they had a waiting time of 2 weeks, and you had to book an appointment in advance, and they said that they had limited appetite, which is limited open hours. And that really freaked me out last year, because when you are in the situation where you might need a termination for whichever reason, every day and every week counts. It's not just like, oh, it's just 2 weeks, I can wait, it doesn't matter. It is really important, knowing that it would be more complicated to get a time, and that it would be as well quite scary to go into a clinic or a hospital, especially last year when we didn't really know what was happening. That freaked me out, and I thought, oh, if I had had my sterilization done, I would not have to worry about this. Of course, now we're hopefully headed towards the end of this whole ordeal for the entire world. I truly hope that we are, and it looks like it. But if something like this would happen again, then it would be the same situation where clinics would have waiting times. You have to call, you have to just go alone by yourself. You might need to take precautions, or maybe they will just be closed entirely if it is a disease that is extremely dangerous. Something that most of you who have watched my videos for a long time know is that I really want to live off-grid somewhere in a cabin up the mountains, far from everything else, and it would be quite inconvenient to have to face an unwanted pregnancy while I'm living in the middle of nowhere. It's just something that I thought about even a long time ago, how to get protection, how to deal with things, and that was one of the things I did not know how to deal with unless I was entirely sterilized. So it also makes sense that to prepare for my potential, hopefully bright future up the mountains someday, it is a thing that just has to be done. As I have mentioned as well in my previous video, it took me multiple years to get approved, and I am scared that if I don't seize the chance right now and I will apply again in the future, the doctor that approved me would have changed department or changed city or just stopped working, even though she seemed quite young, so I don't think she would retire anytime soon. But what if she were just not there, and then I would meet someone else who is convinced that my dream life includes living in the suburbs with a Volvo and 2 kids, which is exactly the opposite of how I imagine myself happy. But if I were to meet someone who would try to convince me that, no, you don't know anything yet, that's what is going to make you happy. Don't you know that everyone has the same way of being happy? You just don't know it because you don't know yourself. But I know you, even though I have met you for 5 minutes now. So if I meet someone like that, I would have to go through a whole hassle again of trying to get approved for a sterilization, so I might as well seize my chance while it's here. And then finally, the last thing is that, yes, I know that vasectomies are way easier for men to get. The recovery time is basically, there is very little recovery time. You don't have to be put to sleep for the surgery. It's not a big surgery like for a woman. Some people go back to work in the afternoon right after it because they go during their lunch break. Basically, for a man, it is not such a big deal, and the failure rates are much lower, because for women, especially if you do tubal ligation, the failure rates are quite high. You can still get an ectopic pregnancy, which is extremely dangerous and requires a trip to the ER. So I do understand that for a man it is much easier to get it done. Unfortunately, at the moment, it is not something that can really be addressed. I also want to take care of my own reproductive health regardless of who I am with, or whether I'm with someone or I'm single. It is something that I want for myself regardless of my relationship status. And it's just something that will make me feel free. Finally, I am not getting a tubal ligation, I am getting a tubal removal, so a double salpingectomy. They sent me a form when I booked the appointment, and in there I could choose whether to have my tubes tied or to have my tubes entirely removed. I want them entirely removed because that reduces the risk of an ectopic pregnancy. An ectopic pregnancy is a pregnancy that starts in the tubes. If you don't have tubes, that cannot happen, so the risk of failure is much lower than just a simple tubal ligation. And also it reduces the risk of a cancer. There are studies that have shown that some cancers start in the tubes, so removing the tubes will reduce the risk of cancer in the future. So for me, tubal removal is a better option than just tubal ligation. And also, if they're going to cut me open anyway, I might just have everything removed. But I want my ovaries to stay there so that I still keep producing hormones, because I don't want to take extra hormones. I'm not really into taking hormones or inserting some things into myself. I have mentioned this before, but I don't drink, I don't smoke, I have never taken drugs. I don't like anything that can alter my body in any way, type, form, shape. I don't even have tattoos, which is not related, but it's just to tell you that I want things to stay as normal and natural as possible in or on my body. I'm releasing this video the day before my surgery, so please think about me, send me good vibes tomorrow. If you're watching this the day before, I will need those good vibes. I have a list of things that I want to prepare, like heating pads, and a list of food that I want to eat during my recovery. But other than that, I am still freaked out and terrified about the surgery. People have different ways of finding happiness, and I would rather have tons of people happy all around in the community than tons of people unhappy. Happy people don't try and make other people miserable. You know, all those Karens, all those terrible, mean people that have nothing to do in their lives than be negative or troll people online, or just be a terrible neighbor, or write passive-aggressive notes. If you're in Sweden, your neighbors definitely have written passive-aggressive notes. When I see those people, I'm just always thinking, wow, why are you so bitter? Why are you so sad? Why are you like this? And more often than not, it's because they're just generally unhappy. If someone decides that being child-free will make them happy so that they're not a terrible neighbor, so they're not a Karen out there on the street, so they're not a terrible boss, then I think that that's better than someone who decides to have children even though they don't want to, but people put pressure on them, and then they get bitter and miserable. They threaten the life of their children or do things that are even worse, like sometimes we see on the news. Or just act terrible on other people because they hate their lives. And I'm not saying that if you have children you will hate your life. I'm just saying that it can happen to people who have been forced into that situation even though they hate it. So my point is that I know some people don't understand this whole child-free thing, but I'd rather have tons of people happy with or without children in the community than tons of people unhappy, because if everyone were happy, you would not have Karens, you would not have people doing terrible things to other people, to the environment, to animals, to just everything around them. And with that said, wish me luck, cookies, and I will see you in the next video, hopefully with my tubes yeeted. And I will see you then. Bye bye!